Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of our speaker series. My name is Flight Sergeant Kendra Hammond, and I'm from 781 Calgary RCCS, and I will be your host for tonight. Tonight we have 5 amazing speakers. We're still waiting on one to come in, but welcome to Rebecca Bailarian. I'm hoping I'm saying all these names correctly. Captain Rydell Hemmings, Captain Ashley Godet, Carrie Regame, and Shirley Matheson. As someone who plans to have an aviation career, I'm excited to hear from all of you. We'll begin by hearing from one of you guys speak, if one of you guys would like to start out tonight. And as well, cadets, feel free to submit your questions using the Zoom chat function.
Okay, so hello everybody, my name is Rebecca Bailarian. You actually said it correctly, so good job. So a little bit about myself. The reason why I wanted to be part of this panel so much is because I was actually one of you guys. I was an air cadet as well. So on the very top left, the second one on the left, that's actually me going through my glider pilot license. Couple missing teeth, really old sweaters, the whole outfit. So that was me as a cadet. After that, I actually ended up going to the University of Calgary for a bachelor's degree. I did do my pilot license and glider license through cadets. However, I felt that I couldn't afford going the whole way as a pilot back then. As anybody that's looked into it, it's a lot of money. So I decided to go for a degree instead. During my degree, I was basically working at different places. So on the very top right there, that's a picture of me working with the Rocky helicopters. So I was basically doing tours with them. It was a really neat experience. Canada and US. So our longest flights are maybe like 4 hours, for example, from Calgary to Houston. So the bottom 2 aircrafts are basically the aircrafts that we fly the most. So it's a Dash 8 100, the Q400, and on the bottom right is the CRJ 900 and 705s back then. So with being on a plane all the time, being at the airport, it was awesome. But then it was just starting to itch again, like that pilot bug got me again. And I decided that, what, I'm going to invest in it, and I'm going to go into my pilot training again. So then I started doing my night reading, my commercial reading, my multi-engine rating as well. I'm not sure if Tegan has more pictures. But basically what I ended up doing with JAS is, even though I was a flight attendant, I could actually do different jobs while being a flight attendant. So I could work human resources on the side, so help with interviews. I could also help with training. So I actually ended up helping performing annual reviews for flight attendants, teaching new flight attendants, and different things like that. The pictures that you see here are the way that I got around, because I was never from a family that had a lot of money. I was never, and I had to kind of figure it out. So in terms of resources, the resources that was the biggest help to me were scholarships. Day in, day out, look for scholarships all the time, like they're everywhere. So that would be my biggest advice to you in terms of things to do. And another one would be volunteering. So either volunteering or getting out into different organizations. So top right is me volunteering with Women in Aviation. That is what I'm part of right now. So about a year or 2 ago now, I ended up being the Women in Aviation president of the Alberta Rocky Mountain chapter. So it's kind of like Calgary and surrounding areas. And now we're on Zoom, so we can kind of spread out for people that can come to our Zoom meetings. And I was basically teaching, and that we have Girls in Aviation Day every year. Now it's going to be a little bit different this year because of COVID-19. However, basically, Girls in Aviation Day is a day where we would spread out basically interests for girls. So it would be anywhere from the age of like 8 to 16, teaching them how to make planes, showing them the cool planes. We had Hawks come last year, so police helicopter in Calgary, so it was really neat. And I kept up with cadets. So at the bottom right is me in Bonnieville, so Cold Lake last summer. I was a supervising pilot for the FAM flights. So we were flying basic, so GT, I think it's called now, general training pilots, general training cadets, and then introduction to aviation cadets. So we're bringing them up for flights, introductory flights. And I was flying myself, and then my 2 other pilots were flying as well. So that's a little bit about me. The biggest thing, well, this year, what I've been able to do is I've actually completed my commercial pilot license, and I finished my multi-engine rating as of yesterday. So go me! And then one thing I really wanted to share with everybody is the resources that I've been using, because volunteering for me has been a huge part of my life, and I don't know what I would do without it. So whether you consider it volunteering or you consider it like reaching out, mentorship, getting somebody to help you, or having somebody to talk to about what I've done or where you could go. I've used Women in Aviation, Elevate Aviation, Whirly Girls, so that's more for helicopters, and then 99s is specifically for female pilots. So the one in the little pink there, that's specifically for women. If you're both genders can obviously help as well, but those are usually more specific to women. And then obviously the Air Cadet program. So I know right now everybody's in Air Cadets, but there's so much more to Air Cadets than just Air Cadets. So there's, you can talk to your officers and find out a little bit more what there is about that too. And then more things like a little bit more in general is Aviation magazine. So if you don't know what you want to do, because there's so many jobs in aviation, I would encourage you to talk to different people, check people out on LinkedIn, YouTube even, or even ask anybody, and then or look at magazines like Skies, Vertical, or Wings. And then Coursera is one thing that I really think that every cadet, it's kind of like the best of both worlds, because it's a bit of survival and a bit of aviation put together. So it's Civil Aviation Search and Rescue Association, and I think that would be a really good way to compound both of those interests for everybody. So it's a little bit about me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and reach out, or put in the chat for later.
Thank you, Rebecca, and congrats again on passing your multi-engine flight test.
Thank you.
Next, we can hear from Captain Ashley Godet.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to 781 and the Toronto Squadron. I forget your number already, but thank you for the invite to be here this evening. So, like Rebecca, I actually got my start through cadets as well. I grew up in PEI, and so I did all of my flying training through Atlantic Region at the DeBert Cadet Flying Training Center. And so I kind of did the standard progression through the aviation related courses. I did ITAC, followed by glider, followed by power, followed by staff cadet, a summer of a staff cadet on the airfield. And then because I got so much out of the program already, I really just wanted to continue to give back. And I decided to enlist when I was 18. So then the summer, I guess, that I was 19, I did the instructor course, the glider pilot instructor course. And that summer was my first summer instructing. So I instructed for 4 years, 4 summers, and essentially paid for my post-secondary education that way, which was great. I'm a registered veterinary technician by trade. So, I mean, I recall in school when friends were talking about student loans, you know, that money's always the hot topic, but they would kind of ask, you know, what's your student loan? What's yours? You know, how much did you get? And I said, I don't have a student loan. And that was always something I was both proud of and almost nervous to talk about amongst peers that, you know, that were taking out loans, student loans, to be able to pay for their post-secondary education. So, so yeah, for me, I worked every summer. I worked for the Queen. I taught 16-year-olds how to fly, and it was an amazing experience. After that, I actually moved to Alberta. That's where I really, my career as a veterinary technician took off. And I spent 11 years in Alberta and only moved to Winnipeg 8 weeks ago. So I just did a transition in my career. There was lots of opportunity. Again, just wanting to give back, to continue to give back, seeing opportunity in our program right now. I applied for the job as Region Cadet Air Standards Officer for Northwest Region. Of course, the headquarters is here in Winnipeg. So for me, I made the move across provinces during COVID-19. So maybe not the smartest thing to do, boys and girls, but that's what happened in my case. So I moved out here just 8 weeks ago. So I'm new to the role of Region Cadet Air Standards Officer, but I've been a standards officer since 2008. So I've had, I think, 13 ab initio students, so that's students that have come through the glider course. I've instructed 10 glider pilot instructor candidates. I love giving back. I think mentorship is extremely important in our organization. I've been really fortunate that I've gotten to fly in 2 regions, Atlantic region and Northwest. That encompasses about 6 provinces and 7 different flying sites that I've worked at. I'm one of probably the very few people in the country that can actually say that I both have my my auto tow conversion as well as winch conversion, and of course we all came through on air tow. So I've got all 3 launch methods. Some of the pictures that Tegan has shown there, those are actually from Vulcan, where that's my CFS that since moving to Alberta, that I operated out of, so just south of Calgary. So some of the cadets that are here tonight might actually have flown with me at my CFS. And so yeah, it's been great. I was the commanding officer there just before I took this position in Winnipeg, but hopefully, lots to participate in out here, and just to try to give back to the program further. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Captain Ashley. Good day. Next, we can hear from Captain Hemmings.
Sure thing. Hi. So like these other lovely ladies, I also started in the cadet program. I didn't join cadets because I wanted to be a pilot. Initially, when I was younger, I decided I wanted to be an astronaut. And then playing mini golf with a friend one day, she was telling me about this thing called air cadets, and she's like, you know what, my brother hated it, but I think you'll love it because you want to be an astronaut. So I said, okay. Started looking around at squadrons, and the one that I joined in Edmonton originally, actually, I joined because they had a military band, and I was already playing saxophone in school. I thought that'd be cool. So I was a cadet there for 4 years. I joined a little bit late, just before I turned 14 years old, but I kind of dove right in and really took advantage of the program. I joined the band, I started playing in the sports team, and really just fell in love with all the different things. my first summer camp was actually basic survival because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was hemming and hawing about some aviation stuff, and then somebody told me, you know, if you want to go be a glider pilot, it really doesn't matter. Just go have a fun summer. So I started with basic survival, and then the following summer, or the following year, started with ground school, and then went and did my glider pilot's license, private pilot's license, finished off my cadet career with doing the International Air Cadet Exchange to France, which was an amazing trip. And then kind of like the others were saying, like Ashley there too, because I got so much out of the program, to me it just really made sense to come back and give back. So now I work as a training officer with A1A Toronto Falcon Squadron. I've been there for, actually this would be my 5th year with the squadron now, because when I moved out to Toronto to start school, I knew that I wanted to stay with cadets. I wanted to keep flying. I was getting my instructor rating through the summer with cadets, and I wanted to give back at the squadron too, so I started teaching ground school. Slowly got a little bit more involved with the training department, working with the seniors and developing leaders, because I really like to see youth rise up and step into their roles as leaders and break through their comfort zones, whether they go from like a shy individual to really good speaking skills, or I've had kids break through stutters, which has been amazing. And yeah, just really fell in love with this program, and was one of the reasons why I probably stayed sane through school, was because I had something else to continue to do on a weekly basis. In terms of school, I went and I did a Bachelor of Aerospace Engineering. I was at Ryerson University. I did a 4-year program there, where I graduated with honors. And you can see in that top left photo there, there's this on the day of getting our iron rings. So for those of you who don't know, basically an iron ring is a symbol of all working engineers in Canada. And the reason that we wear it is because of an incident that happened in Montreal where a bridge collapsed and people died. So we wear it on the pinky hand of the pinky finger of our writing hand, so that basically if we're ever doing calculations or math or signing documents or engineering drawings, we always have this reminder that materials can fail us, and that we might not be like a doctor where somebody's lives can be in our immediate hands, but thousands of lives could be affected from something that we do. On a daily basis now, I work as a junior manufacturing engineering specialist, which is a long fancy title, basically saying that I help the shop floor and operators manufacture landing gear. So I work with Collins Aerospace out here in Ontario, and we supply landing gear for like Boeing aircraft, Airbus, so some big names. Actually, Rebecca flies the Dash 8. We make the landing gear for planes that she's probably flown, which is pretty cool. And to like small aircraft, so some military aircraft we even make landing gear for. So it was really awesome to go to school, specialize in aircraft structures in aerospace engineering, and actually do a lot of projects focused around landing gear, and now be able to work in that field and still give back to the cadet program. So every day I'm surrounded by aviation and aerospace, which I absolutely love. So I'm excited to be here and talk to you all. Thanks, Kendra.
Thank you, Captain Hemmings. The next person we can hear from is Shirley Matheson.
Okay, hello. I come to aviation from quite a different angle, as an author, as an aviation historian. When I grew up on farms, and then in Manitoba, and then in Alberta, Lacombe, and aviation was not part of our family history at all. But when I later moved to the Peace River country, I met some bush pilots. And I was always a writer. Writing was something I did from the time I was about grade 6. So I found the adventures that the bush pilots were telling me about were so exciting. Why not write about them? And so when we moved back to Calgary from the Peace River country, I was doing research for what became my first book, Flying the Frontiers. And I came to the Aerospace Museum, as it was called then. It's now called the Hangar Flight Museum, to ask if I could research their archives and talk to various people. Well, they just took me under their wing, you know, which is an odd expression, but they did. And they said, well, we will introduce you to the old history of Calgary aviation. And that's when it started. My first book on aviation came out in 1994 called Flying the Frontiers, 500,000 Hours of Aviation Adventures. It went into 8 printings. The second book, Flying the Frontiers, was more hours of aviation adventures. The third one was called Aviation Adventures Around the World. And the final story there was a biography of Flight Lieutenant Chris Hadfield. So we went right from the bush up to space. Since that, I have the books that are features I see right here. Flying Ghosts is a young adult novel, and it's set in 1942. Actually, it starts the day after Pearl Harbor was attacked, and it is an aviation story. It has become very popular, and it's a book and its sequel called The Gambler's Daughter that I use when I present workshops for young people, grades 4 to 6 usually, but actually from kindergarten to grade 12, or organizations and that book me to give talks on writing and of course on the aviation. Now, I worked for 12 years at the Aerospace Museum, so I was surrounded by aviation stories, and for a historian and an author, that is just wonderful. I was a founding member of the Women in Aviation Rocky Mountain High chapter, of which Rebecca is now our president. And it formed, Women in Aviation formed because the 99s, you had to be a pilot to be in the 99s. But the Women in Aviation International, and then Canadian Women in Aviation, invites women, or men too, of course, if they wish to join, from all aspects of aviation. And I have attended the conferences of the international conferences. I've given writing workshops called Preserving Our Legends, and how to write your stories, because everyone in aviation and other facets have fabulous stories to tell, and they should not be forgotten. They should be chronicled as you do them. And so I give workshops on writing and aviation stories to everyone from, let's say, as I said, elementary school to adults who are presently working in the field of aviation. So that is what I would like to say to young people who go into cadets is, don't narrow what your choices might be. Just think, what can I do with this industry that I love, where I find the excitement? And it can go everywhere from being an active member of the aviation community in engineering, pilot, any design, any type of thing, to writing and being a historian, working in aviation museums. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley Matheson. So we're going to start with a few questions. First question, any of you guys can answer. What is your biggest challenge in your role? What is the most rewarding part?
Maybe I'll start with this one. I know we had kind of got some of these questions ahead of time, and this was probably the one that I actually had the hardest with. Like, what is the most challenging thing? And I know this is kind of like women in aviation, but I wouldn't say being like a woman in this field was necessarily my hardest challenge. I think right now the biggest challenge that I'm actually currently facing is learning to work with a variety of people, whether it's people from different backgrounds, different areas. Like in my role right now in engineering, I work with people from supply chain management, from aftermarket sales, like with the shop floor and the operators. And some of these operators, they come in with a lot of experience, but they think like a machinist and how to operate a machine. They don't think about like the big picture of how a part needs to be made, right? Or working with the shop floor supervisors, where they just are kind of like always on the go and need to keep things moving, because if the machines aren't running, like we're not getting paid, right? So kind of taking like the rush from the shop floor to like a slower pace of an engineering department and bringing it all together. And because like Canada is very multicultural, we have a lot of people from different backgrounds where English isn't their first language. So we have to understand one another and try to build that communication and break down those other barriers too. But the most rewarding part, I will say, like being one of the very few women in this field, it's been really nice because a lot of people want to see us succeed. So a lot of people will like put time and effort into like training us and bringing us up to speed, and like being able to ask questions to everybody and anybody is been so very helpful. And yeah, probably one of the most rewarding things lately is I've only been with this company in my specific role here for the last 6 months, and I think I'm starting to move up and get my own projects and take lead on my own things because I stood up and started to ask questions and wanted to learn. But that's not just something for just I would say for women, but like for anybody. It's like if you kind of stick your neck out a little bit and be willing to put in that little bit of extra overtime, or ask questions and really show that willingness to learn, then that's going to make waves for you in this industry.
I'd like to answer as well. For me, the biggest thing, it's like I started off as a pilot, but then I went to school, and then I've done so many things in aviation. Like I've gone through logistics, customer service, to flight attendant, like HR, training. Like I've done so many things that, for me, the biggest thing was like it's okay to try different things. Even though I know what I want to do and I know how to get there, it's okay. I kind of had to put myself back and stop freaking out about everything and just realize that it's okay that I want to try everything. It's okay that that I'm doing different things, and that the variety is okay. Like it's even better to have that variety, to figure out what you want to do and how everything's going to fit together at the end. And another thing would be perseverance. Like there's so many things in aviation or even in general in life that can just put you back, whether it's like student loans, money, or like right now, pandemic, or the industry's not right, or it's going to take too long, or whatever, right? There's so many things happening, or even maybe your personal health, family health. Like there's so many things happening all the time that don't think about that. Like if it's something that you want to do, just do it, because you're gonna have to do something eventually, right? You have to do something. You might as well go do something you like, even if it's gonna take a little bit longer, instead of just ending up like with a job or a career you don't like, and just stick with it. In terms of something that I enjoy, the reason why I live, breathe, like everything is aviation in my life is the people. Like everybody in aviation is absolutely phenomenal. Like they will help you at a drop of a hat. Like they know how hard it is to be in aviation and how interesting aviation is, that they like you start talking to somebody about aviation, and it just like you don't stop. Like you're like, for some reason it's like your family already, and you don't even know each other. So that's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, so for me, I would have to agree. I think one of the parts that's challenging in a cadet environment, so when I get cadets that come to me from other squadrons, right? They augment our CFS. And so for me, it's the engagement component, force generation. So keeping them engaged, keeping them interested so that they want to come out. I've always said, and Tegan can attest, that I always say, my biggest success is only as great as my cadets' biggest success, my staff cadets' biggest success. So we often celebrate at our flying site. So their accomplishment is just as important as mine. We might have a root beer at the end of flying day so that we celebrate. So that I think that's both a challenge and the thing that I enjoy most about the Air Cadet flying program is that the engagement part also comes in hand with mentorship. if I'm doing a good job, then I can mentor them through that. I keep them interested, I keep them engaged, and they keep coming back. But the mentorship is, that is the rewarding component. But the challenge, as I said, is absolutely keeping them engaged, keeping them interested, to the point, where they replace me one day. If I'm doing my job right, they're going to replace me.
A challenge for me as a writer of aviation stories was when my books first came out. It wasn't that common to have such books written by a woman. And someone actually said, why don't you just use your initials? And I said, no, my name is Shirley Smith Matheson. That's the way it is. And so a couple of men, I have to say, said, well, I hesitated to start reading your book. And I said, why? You think I would say he pushed on the thingamajig and the whatchamacallit came up? And they had to laugh because that was quite true. But they read the books and they found that my research was right on. I had a technical advisor, Clark Seaborn, and definitely the books proved themselves. And now other women have written about aviation, Anne Gaffia, Danielle Chenille Metcalf, and our books are right and true, and they're enjoyed. There are many books written for young readers on aviation, and I have bought most of them and read them with great interest. I'd give talks about women in aviation and how they started. When Kate Fletcher from Edmonton started flying, her instructor said, if women were meant to fly, the sky would be pink. I mean, we've all gone through challenges like that, and you just laugh and carry on and you go for it. And the rewards come when your work is considered credible. I'm asked to be guest speaker at various aviation conferences. Supposedly this past May, I was to be banquet speaker for the Canadian Aviation Historical Society conference in Vancouver, which had to be postponed to next year because of COVID. But this is where I feel that we can do anything. And I really encourage young girls and boys to take a look outside the boxes. I hate that expression, but it's true. Just see, what can I do? Where is my interest? What might I just develop into to being my absolute love of my life to do? And for me, it's writing, and the aviation stories combine the adventure that goes into all good stories. That's it.
I'd like to echo a little bit to what you said there too, Shirley, because you mentioned about somebody saying just put your initials on it. When I was in my 4th year of university, we had a guest speaker come in and basically talk to us about writing resumes and cover letters, because that's when we're starting to look for work and jobs and the like. And we had somebody stand in the front of the room, and she was basically like, if you're a girl, make sure you put that somewhere in your resume, somewhere in your cover letter. Let people know that you're a woman, because they want to hire you, because they want to make their companies more diverse. Blah, blah. And I remember sitting in there in that class, and I have a relatively gender neutral name. If you look at Rydell, not a lot of people know if it's a male or a female name. I got named from a high school from a movie, right? It doesn't really come from anywhere. So I remember saying I don't want to be that person that flashes, lights saying, hey, by the way, I'm a woman, hire me for that. I wanted to be hired for my skills, right? I want to show on my resume that I have these abilities, that I can prove myself that I can do that hard work, right? Because if they're going to look at the end of the day and be like, oh, do I want to pick a guy or a girl, or this one name that I don't know of, oh, well, this person, with all, everything's the same, I don't want them just to pick me because I'm a woman, right? So, there is some of that in the industry. I do think it is getting a lot better. There is still some of those naysayers, like you said, hire women flying, or when I was doing my private pilot's license, we had charter pilots come in and basically give us this whole pep talk, and then turn around 2 minutes later and say, you know what, give up your dreams now, because none of you guys are going to actually be real pilots. And all of us just kind of looked at them and were like, fine, we'll prove you wrong one day, right? And both of my flight instructors going through the cadet program were female, and feel like we have a decent portion of female instructors in the cadet program. And somebody even said like women make really good instructors because, you know, like we can do the technical stuff like the guys. We still have that caring component, right? Like guys make phenomenal instructors too, right? Like it's just about that work that you put into it and how you approach it.
Hmm.
Another question is, what does being a woman in aviation mean to you?
Personally, I try not to put too much focus on it. I mean, I know that we're outnumbered. I think the stats say that there's 5% of women, I think, in the industry. I even think that there was a social media post from the RCAF back in March, and it was 2 female search and rescue technicians on the first search and rescue mission ever in RCAF history, and that made the news. And I just remember thinking, like, why is this the first time? Why is this getting attention? Like, there's always these all men crews all the time. So like Shirley Ann Rydell just said, like, work ethic is so much more important to me. So I don't look at it in a sense of gender. I just continue to work hard and kind of keep my blinders up. I know what my job is. I'm good at it. I make sure other people see that my work ethic and my work, end product is good, and that's all I try to focus on. So I don't really think of anything else personally.
I think I'm kind of in the similar boat to you. Like when I started working at the company I'm at now, one of the first questions I got asked actually in my interview was, are you going to be okay working in a place that's dominated by men? And I basically said, you know what, like I went through the cadet program, which was still relatively cadet heavy. Like I was the only female in my level for 3 out of my 4 years. Like I went through aerospace engineering, which has the lowest number of women compared to all the other engineering disciplines. And like I'm a pilot. I work as an officer with the Canadian Armed Forces. Like I might as well go be a truck driver and then I'll hit all the male dominant fields. Like, yeah, I'll be all right, you know? So sometimes there's kind of like going back to that challenges one a little bit, and like being a woman in like in this aviation and aerospace and kind of STEM in general. I think probably like the other challenge I would say I deal with is usually women, like we're a little bit more emotional. Like I'll get really passionate about like what I'm doing, where the guys are like, okay, yeah, it's just a project, but I'm like, yeah, like, but it's a cool project. Or I'm somebody that's always worn my emotions on my sleeve. So it's like if I'm happy, I cry. Like if I'm sad, I cry. Like if I'm frustrated or excited or just super passionate, like crying is my default emotion. And you know, it's like I see one of my projects that I've designed like be manufactured and go and be used, and I cry happy tears, and all the guys kind of stare at me. They're like, what's wrong with you? Like this is a happy moment. And I'm like, yes it is, right? So just kind of like working through those things in these male dominated fields. But yeah, like try not to think of it too much and just, you know, hold my ground, be there, and just I want to be maybe not the best, but I want to be there to learn, and I want to be there to grow, and I want to be there to move up in the roles.
It's funny that you mention emotion, because that's, as I was reading through the question list that you guys had sent us here earlier, that was one of the things that I thought of, is that women are, I think, more animated, maybe is a better word, but I think that really translates into emotion. And when you make something personal or you make it too emotional, sometimes you lose credibility. And I don't necessarily think that's fair, because as you said, like, emotion for you, outward emotion is your way to express, that you're happy with the end product, versus I think, my opinion is that I think that some of our male counterparts might see that emotion, and then you just lose credibility with them the second that because you're loud doesn't mean you're right, or just because you say something with a little bit more conviction. You really need to have the background as well to fully buy into what you're saying, and use that passion and not emotion for it sometimes.
The when I am judging stories or books, and 5 of the criteria that I use are the development of character, plot, setting, style, and emotion. And this is what you're both saying. Emotion is important, and you must feel for what you do, or bring that out in a reader in the case of books, or in your work. Have the emotion, have the passion. You have to have the passion. I think Wayne Gretzky was the first to say you must have the passion. And so what we're talking about, I think, is very valid.
It's funny that you asked that question, because every single time I get a scholarship or I get to talk to somebody that's been in aviation for a long time, they always give me the same answer. So, for example, I've talked to Judy Cameron, Rosella Bjornsson. So those are the first airline female pilots in Canada. And Yvonne Boom, she's actually the first ATC in Edmonton. So every single time I ask the question to them or something similar, they always say, like, they don't even think about it. They just say, this is what aviation, something I loved, being a pilot, something I loved. I didn't think about it. I just put blinders on, and whoever didn't like it didn't like it. And which is basically what everybody here has said, is that it doesn't matter what they think, just go for it. Like, if I like the color blue and you don't like that I like the color blue, well, it doesn't change anything. I still like the color blue. You know what I mean? So you can't change that. So I'm still gonna go for it.
Awesome. And I know Heather Pesto just recently joined in too. She's another one of our women in aviation individuals. She's actually working up in northern Ontario, but she's like so far north that she's like basically like in the prairies. Yeah, she started in aviation. She did the cadet program as well, still continues to work and is a tow pilot. So Heather, feel free to jump in on this kind of Q&A with your thoughts, opinions, that too, and get like your experiences too. Like, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I just wanted to apologize for being late. I'm still working right now, so you saw me I'm looking down at my phone and sending emails and stuff. So don't think me rude, please. These are fantastic questions, and really happy to be with you guys to hear all your words of wisdom and experience in your individual aviation lives. So thank you very much.
For all of you, what is your best piece of advice for a female cadet or any other team considering a career in aviation?
Rydell and I are like, unmute, mute, unmute. I think for me, it's already been kind of mentioned, but the buzzword being perseverance. I think, you know what, if you want something, you really need to just get after it. If you're really passionate about it. You know, I've been talking to a few people in the last few days about the current state of affairs in you know, in terms of COVID-19 and the cancellation of the senior summer camps, senior summer courses, sorry, and you know, that's hit home for a lot of people that were hoping to go on a course this summer. But I hope they can appreciate as well that, you know, there's 3 of us that are instructors here, and we're thinking the same thing. It sucks that we're not seeing those cadets coming to summer camp this year, but that's not just because COVID-19 happened. You know, there's always going to be a COVID-19. Like, there's always going to be something. So if you want it, keep working. You know, work hard. I think Rebecca had said, you know, put yourself. One of my tips, one of my things, it's a quote that says, you know, you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with. So I try to surround myself with like-minded individuals, people that are smarter than me, and just try to learn all the time, learning. so that I'm bettering myself, so I better my opportunities. And again, I've also said this recently that at one point I thought, the stars aligned, and I'm where I am today because the stars aligned. Once I got thinking about it, I thought, it's not the stars aligning. You worked hard for everything that you got, and I think that's really important, that you can't just assume something's going to be given to you, and you can't just take easy street to get there. If you want it, earn it, and work hard for it, and it's yours.
That's right. Never listen to the naysayers. What have they accomplished? I mean, there's many people I'm sure that would say, oh, this is going to be too hard, or girls don't do this, or why don't you do something, more traditional? But you know what's in your heart. Just do it and keep at it. And, the satisfaction you get from accomplishing what you set out to do is something that no one can ever take away from you. So that's for every age. Just do it and keep doing it. I'm retired now from the Aerospace Museum, the Hangar Flight Museum, but I'll never retire from writing. I'm writing every morning, my best brain time, and just continuing, learning music, learning new things. And this is what I think I really encourage young people to do. Just try it all and go for it.
Yeah, I think my two biggest things, like one, like definitely persevere and figure out like kind of what you want to do and why. Like I was one of those kids that I knew from a young age, like I knew when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I know a lot of people kind of go into high school or even in grade 12 are like, what do I want to do with my life? Like what's next? And like you'll have that spark, you'll have your moment, like you'll figure out something that you like to do and you'll want to go and do it. For me, one of my big things growing up was after reading one of Chris Hadfield's books, one of the things that he had is when he decided he was going to go and be an astronaut and learn, he kept asking himself, like, what would an astronaut do? It's like, okay, like for dinner, it's like, do I go hang out with my friends or do I have like this, like healthier meal? He's like, oh, well, what would an astronaut do? Okay, he would pick the healthy option, it's like, okay, in school, like, would an astronaut, like, would they go party with their friends and, stay out till 3 a.m. on a Saturday night, or like, would they study and, ask questions and learn and like, what would they do? And he kind of built his life around like, what would an astronaut do? I don't think I went to some of the same extremes that he talks about in his book, but definitely it was kind of like, okay, like what's the next best thing? Like, what's that next right thing? Like, what do I need to do to get to where I want to be? And it was kind of figuring out like where I wanted to be. Honestly, like now I'm not training to be an astronaut. I shifted my path a little bit and decided that I appreciate my body and I don't want to harm it in space, but maybe I can, build the rocket or build the stand that holds the rocket that's going to go up to space. And that's how I found aerospace engineering and then cadets, and now I'm kind of where I am, and now I get to build the landing gear for planes. I mean, it's not used during any phase of flight, but it's pretty important when you're on the ground. I think aircrafts like to be able to move around, right? And I think my second piece of advice would be just do everything, get yourself involved. Like the cadet program, like for being a free program, like it can offer so much. Like if you want to pick up a musical instrument, you want to get into sports, you want to try biathlon, you want to try out the marksmanship team, get into drill, like do a variety of different things, because that's going to teach you different skills. It's going to teach you to manage your time and organize your days and plan and be creative and activate different parts of your brains. And it's not stuff that you probably realize that is so important like while you're in the program, but I'll tell you, like when I graduated, like nobody asked for my school grades, right? Like I needed my high school grades to get into university. I had my minimum requirements, so I made sure that in grade 11 and grade 12 they were all good so I could get into my first year of engineering. But after that, like I wasn't attached to graduating with honors every year or getting on the dean's list, because to me that didn't really, that didn't excite me. I'd rather spend my time like working with cadets and teaching them aviation and working for the summers than trying to like up my grades and be in the 90s. Like I still graduated with good marks, but when I go into the interviews, like people don't ask you like, oh, what did you get in that chemistry class? Like, what was your highest score, right? Like nobody asks us about our school grades. like I say, I graduated with honors, but like I only got honors 1 year, and that was honestly the year that I gave up, and I was like, just get me out of school. I want to go work. Like I'm done sitting in a classroom. And yeah, that was apparently one of my best studying years. But they ask you things like, what kind of stuff did you do? If you were in this situation, what would you do, right? So by participating in a variety of activities, like you learn to speak with other people, both like individuals that are younger and older than you, which helps you in interviews. Like it teaches you how to problem solve. And that's what people are looking for. They're not looking for like, oh, are you a 90% student, right? Like I have a friend in fourth year university. He got 4 awards for having top marks in different classes. He's not working in the engineering discipline. He hasn't found a job yet since we graduated. He's a brilliant individual when it comes to technical stuff, right? I graduated with like 70s, 80s, right? Like average in our thing. And like I'm working in an industry of my choice, but it's because I had leadership experience from cadets. It's because I have a bit of an aviation background. It's because I had more diversity. Like they'd rather take somebody that's passionate and excited and willing to learn and then teach them the skills. Because if somebody has the grades and the skills, you might not be able to teach them passion or attitude or the ability to work with other people. So yeah, but figure out what you want to do and be like, what would an astronaut do? What do I want to do? And just get involved in a variety of things, because that matters more than a number on a transcript later on.
Yeah, I like those. That's a really hard question, honestly, because I feel like there's so much that I want to say in regards to that question. But I think the biggest thing that when you're trying to find out what you want to do, just think about what's something that you can't stop thinking about. For me, it was always flying. Like that's what I want to do. But again, go back to that question: what's something you can't stop thinking about? So what are you good at? What's something you can't stop thinking about? Another thing that, in terms of like getting into your own head, just remember that you're brave, you're capable, and you're ready. Don't doubt yourself. Don't just go for it. Stop overthinking it. And another thing that, like the third thing that I really want to emphasize is get yourself a mentor. Mentors. Get a lot of people helping you out for different things. Like I know if there's somebody that you know that's really good at resumes, get them. If you know somebody that's really good at I don't know, for example, for me it was multi-engine license. I was talking to this person for parachute jobs, or like skydiving jobs, pilot jobs. I was talking to the other person for aerial spray. I was talking to another person. So just talk to a bunch of people, because you never know what you like if you don't talk to these people and you see what they are doing, how are they going day to day, and see what you can get from that.
And further to what Rebecca was just saying, if you're going to be a professional, act like a professional. Join organizations, especially as you get older. Join every organization that is in your field, and you will learn from those people in it. As you say, mentors. Take courses. Continue taking courses. Lifelong learning. So just what Rebecca was saying, I fully agree. In whatever you're doing, those courses and organizations, and join in.
Something that I found to be really helpful, and this honestly kind of touches on everything that everyone else has said, finding the mentors, knowing that nobody does everything by themselves. It's never a bad thing to have help, and I think it's tough to realize sometimes. It's easy to get down on yourself if you find yourself relying on other people to help study or to help teach you things. But that's honestly how it works. No one gets to where they are by being by themselves and being some kind of power unit that can study every single thing or do every single activity or event. So a big thing is just learn how to take criticism and really ask for help, because the person helping you had tons of people help them, and you'll get so much farther if you accept gracefully everybody's tidbits, tips and tricks, information, good lucks, well wishes. It's super nice and helpful, and it does make you a more well-rounded person as well. And then that gets you in a position where you can then pass on the favor to somebody else who's starting out. So having mentors, and then possibly working towards being a mentor yourself and getting mentees. So that's been really helpful for myself, because there's a lot of things out there to learn, even just in aviation, but in everything. And it's impossible to do it by yourself. So it's normal to have friends and have those friends help you out.
It's interesting you say that, Heather, because I watched the astronaut graduating class back in February, and one of the things that they said was that their class was referred to as the Turtles. And the whole joke, eventually throughout the grad watching it, they sheepishly say, it's the Turtles, because if you see a turtle on a fence post, that turtle didn't get there by itself. Right. And so I just, when I heard that, I was like, that's ingenious, because that applies to everything, especially the cadet program. And as Rydell said, it doesn't have to be flying. It could be learning an instrument. It could be learning how to write, like Shirley's saying, yeah, everybody's a turtle. So you didn't get there by yourself.
Exactly. That's perfect. I'm going to remember that quote. Last thing, the second thing that's really big is, and I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but usually things are more difficult than you initially anticipate. And personally for aviation, that's definitely been a struggle. And those of you guys who are saying persevere, don't let anyone stop you, it is just so important, because sometimes it can feel like the world is piling up against you. COVID is shutting down flight training, not learning something as fast as you want to, not getting a job as quickly as you want to. Flight training just usually takes longer for everyone what they initially say, or initially think the time it's going to take. So just keep in mind that there will always be speed bumps and little rough patches, and might seem like someone is trying to test your sanity, but that's all part of life too. And all of those experiences really build you up as a person, and it makes you stronger and more able to handle adversity. And it's all part of the trip. It can't, be perfect all the time, unfortunately, but you truly do become better off having gone through all these situations. So especially for all of the cadets who their camp has been canceled, it's absolutely devastating. But in a way, later, years and years down the road, you'll be so much better equipped to handle different things that come your way that seem to kind of stop you. So to just definitely keep trying to push through. And when things aren't going exactly how you had planned, a little diversion here, a little stop here, always do your best to try and enjoy every single little bit, every single situation, every chapter of your life. Don't always keep thinking about, oh, I can't wait for when I finally get that first multi job. Like I've been flying the tow plane for how many years, trying to build hours. Those are some of the best years of my life. And even though I was really hoping to start flying a larger aircraft, like at a big kid job, right now I'm on the ground, but this job also is giving me, just like Rydell and everyone said, different experiences that'll make you more well-rounded, more knowledgeable, just better, as a person, and as a person in whatever industry you're going in. So always push through, always enjoy yourself.
Thank you, everyone. There's one final question for you, Rebecca. Somebody asked, what route did you take to build your hours?
Okay, so and this is I was very frugal. I was the frugal pilot, if that even is even possible. It's an oxymoron by itself, as From my understanding, Heather, you're laughing, so I feel like you know my pain. But basically every pilot kind of knows that it's really hard to do that. I have found a few resources I'm going to share with everybody. So if you're in Winnipeg, or if you ever go around Winnipeg, the the 99s in Winnipeg, they rent out a Cessna 152 or for I think $20 an hour dry for women, and I went 72 for $50 or $70 dry for both men and women. So when you're building your hours, go that route. So it's kind of hard because it's in Winnipeg, so it's kind of takes a little bit of juggling around. But if you're around there, definitely do that. Different thing is a couple things that a few of the ladies here have done is if you can go with cadets, do that. So I got a good 30 hours just doing the FAM flights during the summer. If you can do towing, if you can do, teaching, or if you can do FAM flights can actually do that during the year as well with different squadrons. So try to get on that. The one biggest thing is that there is a little bit of a hurdle. I know there's a few requirements. I think you have to have like 30. I used to be like 100 hours, but now I think it's a little lower than that. Before you can start taking people on FAM flights, but just find out what that is and just go for it. Don't take a break after you get your private license. Don't take a break. Just get back into flying and start flying. Because if you take a break, then you end up just not flying ever again. And that's the biggest thing. Another thing too is I've gotten scholarships left, right, and center because I have not stopped applying. It's in my part-time job. So Elevate Aviation, I've got a scholarship with them. Air Canada, Judy Cameron, I got a scholarship there. There's been like government ones. There's been Women in Aviation, 99s, like every single. There's the BC groups, the women, so 99s in Winnipeg as well. We had a scholarship last year, so there's always scholarship popping up. Just keep looking, just look, apply, and then at the end it's kind of like applying for a scholarship, right? Like with cadets, and you'll have that perfect letter, like because it's like a resume, like you've had that letter, so like you've had to work with it so much, and at the end you're like, there's nobody that's going to say no to me. Like I have this perfect essay and nobody's going to say no because I've perfected it so much, because it's been rejected so many times, right? Like, which is okay, because at the end of the day it's going to be great. Those are definitely different ways. So I know that's a lot to say, but basically if I was going to narrow it down, it'd be scholarships, and if you can get a little bit of flying with Winnipeg, and with cadets as well. And then what I personally did on the side was I worked part-time with as a marketing assistant with the flight school. So whatever I worked, I didn't actually get money out. I got put into my flight school. So you can do, you can do administration or whatever, ramp with a flight school, and instead of getting paid, if you don't need the money, you can get it to your flying. So yeah, I got really resourceful.
And for scholarships too, I think one of the big things is don't second guess yourself, or don't stop yourself from applying for things. Like,
yeah.
If you're looking at it and you're like, oh, but I only meet like 3 out of the 5 requirements. Like, I applied for my job and they're like, oh, we need you to have 5 years experience, which I didn't. I just graduated, right? Like, I had no experience in the industry. I applied, I got it, right? My sister, after she did her private pilot's license, she was looking for various scholarships and found one in Saskatchewan for women. And she lives in Edmonton, Alberta at the time. And she applied for it, and she got the scholarship because she was the only individual that applied for that scholarship, because other people looked at it and they're probably like, oh, I don't know, I don't meet the requirements, I can't, whatever. So don't even second guess yourself, just like apply for the scholarship, like ask the questions, just put it out there, because like the worst thing that somebody's going to say is no, or you don't hear back. Like, nobody's going to come and burn your house down, right? Like, just apply for it, because she ended up getting like almost $1,000 or something like that to continue her flying, just because she's like, sure, why not, and threw it out there.
I can't help but think of that quote that says, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So Heather kind of had touched on it earlier, just in terms of struggles, but I can't help but think too that one of the bigger things is like get out of your own head. You don't have to be a female, like male, doesn't matter. You are your own worst enemy, and you know, sky's the limit. If you just apply, keep applying. I mean, I like that. I'm going to use that. No one's going to come and burn your house down. But yeah, so there's nothing stopping you except for yourself. We are our own worst enemy. So that would be my like tip number one, get out of your own head.
You know, don't let them stop you. Just keep going. And rejection, my goodness, writers get more rejections than anybody. Some people paper their walls with their rejections, but you know, too bad. Just keep going. The next one will love you. One person, one magazine rejected one of my stories and actually put a rather snappy rejection note on it. And I was very happy that their magazine went broke later. You know, I mean, and you just say, okay, revenge is sweet, but I kept on and that story got published in another magazine. So just go for it.
Thank you for answering all these questions, and thank you for all sharing your time and speaking to us with today. And I also want to thank everyone who joined this call to listen to these inspiring women. And this concludes tonight's special edition of the speaker series. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. Best of luck, and stay healthy, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Leave meeting. Bye-bye.